Chapter 19. Bobby looked at me and Fish. She'd seen and heard everything. I knew it, she said, setting the burger baskets down on the desk and backing up the few feet toward the door. I knew there was something mental about you. Will's never going to believe this. Bobby left the storeroom before Fish or I could say a word. Fish leaped up from his seat on the low table. I've got to stop her. There's nothing you can do, Fish, I said, jumping up from the sofa to grab my brother's arm to keep him from doing something stupid. But there was no need. Fish halted dead in his tracks, staring at the little television on top of the filing cabinet. I followed his gaze and inhaled sharply. There, in all the snowy black and white importance such as a tiny TV could muster, our photographs, Bobby's, Will's, Fish's, Sampson's, and mine, began flashing across the screen with alert, missing, alert, scrolling across the bottom of the screen, along with an 800 number to call if anyone had seen us. We watched our pictures flick and wobble through the poor reception of the small TV. Then the newscast cut over to another reporter interviewing the pastor and his wife in front of the church. Miss Rosemary looked sorrowful and worried. Pastor Meeks looked stiff and strained and spitting mad. Fish clenched his jaw, his muscles tense. We've got big problems, Mibbs, he muttered without looking away from the television. I glanced from the television to the door leading into the dining area and swallowed hard, trying to imagine what else could go wrong that day. Things had already gone from bad to worse, and I had a feeling our situation wasn't going to be getting better anytime soon. Just as Fish reached out his hand to turn off the television, the back door emergency exit burst open with the loud rasp of metal on metal, startling me and Fish so badly we both jumped back. A barrel-chested man in a hooded sweatshirt and green spandex shorts scowled at us from the doorway. He had a gold chain around his neck and a large gold nugget ring on each hand. This had to be Ozzie, manager of the Emerald Truck Stop Diner and Lounge. He pulled a toothpick from between his lips and flicked it back over his shoulder toward the parking lot. Then he stepped inside, bearing down on Fish and me like an angry bison. What are you kids doing back here? He demanded, his breath a loud mix of bluster and buffalo wings. Can't you read? This area is for employees only. Beat it! Scram! Ozzie advanced, waving his hands at us like a muscled wizard shooing chickens. Go find your parents or go play with the jukebox or something. We're here with Lil, I squeaked as he pushed us backward toward the door to the dining area. She said we could be in here, but that didn't stop Ozzie's forward momentum. In fact, it only made things worse. Blap, he said, making a harsh and showy sound like a game show buzzer. Wrong answer. Lil's at the top of my list right now. In fact, Lil's about to get canned. With that, Ozzie pressed Fish and me right out of the storeroom, pushed back into the middle of all those chaotic, noisy voices I tried my best to keep from becoming discombobulated, tried to figure out how to scumble those thunderous thoughts that didn't belong to me. But that was a hard thing, a thing that could take years, horrible, long years of this stupid savvy, and I had no idea how to do it. I stayed as close to the edge of the room as I could, hovering near the wall closet to the kitchen, next to the long dining counter. I was aware of the sound of plates hitting plates in the kitchen, the sound of silverware hitting the floor, and the pop and sizzle of frying burgers. But all the boisterous voices in my head floated on top of those or other ordinary sounds like warring battleships on a churning ocean. I couldn't tell if the room was spinning or if I was, and the scene that followed flew by me like a series of snapshots set to the jingle-jangle jumble of other people's thoughts and feelings. When Ozzie entered the dining room, Lil was behind the counter with 3 pies lined up in front of her, putting the first slice into the banana cream with long, wedge-shaped pie knife. Lester sat near her on a round stool, biting into a thick burger and spilling yellow mustard onto his twisted tie. Bobby's with Will Jr. over by the jukebox, I heard Fish say into my ear. Looking toward the corner of the room, I saw Bobby talking to Will and pointing our way. She's telling him everything, said Fish darkly. I noticed Will looking back and forth from his sister to me, but at that point, my head hurt too much to care about his reaction, and by then, Ozzie had started yelling again. Ozzie stepped over to Lil, picking up the banana cream pie and taking the knife out of her hands. That's it for you, Lil, Ozzie said, waving the pie knife covered in whipped cream through the air as he spoke, gesturing wildly and hitting Lester on the hand with a stray slice of banana. You've tried my patience too far. You may be a decent waitress when you manage to get yourself here on time, but I've had it. This is the last time you show up late and the last time you slice pie at the Emerald Truck Stop Diner." "But Ozzie," Lil started to protest. "I want you out of here right now, Lil Kitely," shouted Ozzie in his spandex shorts, obviously enjoying the sound of his own voice and the attention it brought him from the red-haired waitress. By now, everyone in the diner had stopped talking and turned to watch the scene unfolding between Ozzie and Lil. Even the song on the jukebox ended, as if it too were listening in. Lester dropped his hamburger and slowly wiped the banana from his thinning hair. Will and Bobby stepped closer to the counter, but stopped when they saw Ozzie wielding the knife. With everyone's attention fixed and focused on the great and powerful Ozzie, even the voices in my head grew quiet. Still holding the pie as though he didn't trust Lil enough to put it down near her, Ozzie set the knife into a tub beneath the counter. Watching him, I saw Samson sitting still and quiet under the counter in an open space just next to the dish tub, so dark and shadowy that Ozzie hadn't even noticed him. "Ozzie, just let me," Lil tried again to speak. "Bwop!" Ozzie made the same annoying game show noise, cutting Lil off. "You lose, Lil." Ozzie turned, holding the pie in his left hand. With his right hand, he opened the cash register. He pulled out a wad of bills and made a production out of throwing the money at Lil, who, for all the world, looked like she might melt away into a flood of tears, should she lose control and let the dam burst. "There," said Ozzie as the bills fell to the floor at Lil's big feet. "You can pick up your consolation prize. That should cover your last paycheck." I could see the red-haired waitress smirk at Lil, with all the dignity she could muster, bent down to pick up the money off the floor. It would have been better for everyone if Ozzie had managed to maintain a little more restraint. When Ozzie started laughing cruel as cruel at poor Lil, now down on the floor picking up her final pay, the real unbridled brouhaha began. "Mister," said Lester, slamming his fist against the counter as his twitch worked his shoulder up and down like one of the pistons inside the engine of his bus, "that's no way to treat a lady." Saying this, Lester shoved his plate aside and stood up, walking around the counter to help Lil gather up the money. At the very moment, Samson leaned forward from his hidey hole behind the counter and bit the great and powerful Ozzie hard on the leg. Ozzie shrieked like a little girl, and the banana cream pie flew out of his hands to land upside down with a sickening slump on the floor in front of him. "Why, you little—" Clutching his leg and hopping on one foot, Ozzie pulled the pie knife back out of the tub, menacingly. "No!" I cried out, seeing Samson pop up behind the counter within easy reach of the angry man and his pie knife. Bobby and Will rushed across the floor of the diner. They both tried to grab for the knife over the countertop as Samson shot out from behind it, running toward the storeroom. Fish and I charged forward, and together we shoved Ozzie hard in the middle of his muscled back, sending him lurching forward and slip-sliding through the fallen pie. The burly man skated on one foot through bananas and custard as Fish's angry wind swept through the diner, unbalancing Ozzie even further. Ozzie toppled backward with a thud. The red-haired waitress screamed, and customers rose to their feet, unsure if they should help or even whose side they should be on if they did. "Let's get out of here," Bobby shouted, sprinting around the counter to help Lil and Lester collect the rest of the money. Then she and Will Jr. herded the rooted and rattled adults past the cursing, floundering Ozzie and back toward the employees-only door for an emergency escape out the emergency exit door, Fish and I wasting no time in following. Passing through the storeroom, Lil grabbed her sweater from its peg and looked at the rest of us, shaking her head. Her face was red, and she had pie on her big white shoes. "Sorry, all," Will said breathlessly as we headed toward the door. Looks like we bad kids and misfits got to hit the road again." She pointed toward the basket sitting on the desk where Bobby had set them earlier. "Grab those burgers, kidlings. You can eat on the bus." Lil looked down at Samson, who had taken her hand, looking mournful. "Sorry about the banana cream, critter," Lil said with earnest. Lester stopped short. "Everyone just hold on 1 minute." Lester's decisive tone stopped us in our tracks. Without even pausing to twitch, he hoisted one finger into the air like a signal to charge, then turned and pushed back through the door to the dining area. For a moment, I thought Lester had blown his last fuse and had run the wrong way by mistake. But a moment later, he was back with a second cream pie held high above his head like a trophy. He barreled across the room in a hot-footed hustle toward the exit. As Lil gave the battered sofa in the storeroom one firm and final kick, just as she'd done to her broken-down car. Then she pushed the rest of us after Lester, all tumbling out the back door into the parking lot behind the restaurant, away from Ozzie and the Emerald Truck Stop Diner and Lounge.